most of the time, you're happy to be there.
50-50, I enjoy it. We'll see how it feels to be on the side.
Is Barbara here?
Yeah.
I ain't seen her.
Get some water.
Oh, you never go get yours?
I'll get it. Just don't start with that.
I thought I got to wait for Donna.
She's here. She got here when I came in.
Who Donna? She's here. She's coming. Yeah, she's here. She's going to the branch office for the moment. All right. Hey, Adam.
Hey, Bob,
How are you, stranger?
pretty good.
Good to see you, man.
Still recognize me with that face.
You've had a haircut.
Little things.
Oh, no, never mind.
That's it.
Oh, man.
How are you? Good. How you doing? Thanks.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be getting underway in just a minute. If anybody's here for the public session where you want to speak during the public session, there is a sign-up sheet if you would sign in. That is not the public hearing part. I'm talking about the public session. Let's see here. I'm missing Travis.
He's here somewhere.
Yeah, he was here.
He'll be right down. Sorry.
He's on the way. Okay. I don't think I legally can start without clerk, can I? I don't think
You
so.
don't want to?
We could appoint David clerk.
You won't be able to read my writing.
There he is. There he is.
Yeah, will you pass it?
We've got to get one more thing, Mr. Mayor. Apologies, we just now got this.
Okay.
Grab me a water.
Sure. Oh,
It's just amazing that the economies that
I'm being sweaty with papers.
your sign makers that are making the emblems that say, 6 feet back and all that kind of
Is
stuff.
this the home
Things like
agenda?
this, masks,
Didn't need
like
to.
that,
That's what I said. Flooded with papers.
each mask is he put the name.
No, I don't know what's on Elaine's
Fly
mind
together.
about me having the kiosk. She thinks about the plannings.
You probably.
He just bought a house up here.
She just likes to meet, touch base with everybody and keep everybody informed.
Very nice.
Very nice. 10% or 10 cents
Very pleased.
per mask. And then you just
She talked to the Cherokee Council the other day when we were
There's
there.
a whole busload from Cherokee here yesterday.
Wow.
One of those small transit vans.
What's going on?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'll call tonight's, what is tonight, September the 8th, meeting to order. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance led by Vice Mayor Barbara McRae.
Please join me in reciting the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God,
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, a couple of things. The first thing we need to do is adoption of tonight's agenda, and I have two things that I've been asked to add, and I'll check and see if anybody else has any in just a second. The first has a discussion on school virtual learning hotspot, and also a sick leave policy, which will be on L. Is that right? Do I need to add a note on the virtual learning spot?
No, I think it would be K.
K. Is it already? Okay. All right. Okay.
Should we,
Yeah.
should we add this? I think it behooves us to. We tabled the discussion last time, and now we have another piece of paper in front of us regarding a lease. Probably should be added to the agenda.
I don't know. I thought that issue was settled.
I think it was tabled. And we just, a taxpayer's asking for something, we should tell them yes or no, or find some sort of resolution if they're asking.
If you want to make a motion to add it, we'll,
All right, I'd like to make a motion to add that.
I'll second it.
Yeah, is somebody here on that behalf?
I don't think so.
Joe, I kind of thought it was just,
It was tabled. No, it was
Tabled,
tabled, but this, I don't believe, rises to the level of an agenda item. Just throwing out a number it doesn't give us enough information to go forward on.
Well, I guess my specific questions regarding it are whether our town manager and town attorney have the ability to discuss it with them, or if this needs to come before us every single time an idea comes out.
And my understanding was that somebody wanted their persons to be heard, maybe to put this up there. This is not enough of information for us for it to become an agenda item, especially without any. I mean, it is, no, it don't, I mean, if it did, it's die.
No, well, it needs to either die or something needs to happen to it. I guess get out of purgatory. I didn't put it here, but it's here, and they're taxpayers, and I mean, we owe it to people to give them an answer one way or the other. Or really, my ultimate goal is to find out if Summer and John have the ability to discuss this with them, or if we just need to say no and move on.
And I apologize, this is the first time I've seen this, so if you would give us at least until the next meeting to talk about it, I've not had any chance to evaluate it. I'm happy to do that. I mean,
Do you need our permission to discuss this matter with them?
no,
okay.
I don't believe so.
You want to proceed?
I mean, I would like to. I think we need to find out, but if we don't, if we want to wait till next month, then wait till next month.
What's
So
the-
there is a motion and a second on the floor.
was there a second? Okay. All right, you want to call for the vote?
What is the vote?
So what is it going to be? What is the motion going to be?
To discuss it and find out if our staff has the ability to discuss this or not with the taxpayers who are asking for something from the town. If it gets tabled again, it gets tabled again.
Well, I think if you're gonna have to make a motion on something that's tabled, you gotta make a motion to take it off the table, put it back up for discussion.
That's what I'm doing.
And I think if you go by the rules that we have, the only people who can make motions to put something back for reconsideration are the ones who voted with the motion when it was tabled in the first place.
That's out of my league.
I think that's according to our policy and procedural policies. Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to amend my motion. I'd like to add to the agenda an inquiry as to whether or not our town staff has the ability and permission of this board to engage in conversation with a taxpayer who is asking something from the town.
To have the town staff?
Yes. Our staff needs guidance, Bob. From this board.
I don't think you need a motion for any of the staff to just have a conversation with this, do you?
Why do you need a motion for the staff to talk to a taxpayer?
That's my point.
Because from my understanding, the town staff does not want to go forward wasting town staff time engaging in a discussion that may or may not go anywhere.
Where do you think it's going to go tonight?
I would like to know, either give permission to town staff so that somebody can bring something back to us and present something to us, or if they don't have the ability to engage with that person to bring something to us or not.
Well, I think we do things like that 5 or 6 days a week when people come in, do we not? I mean, we can talk to anybody. Yes, ma'am.
If I may,
Please.
Mayor and Council, I think the issue that maybe Mr. Culpepper is getting to is does the town council and mayor want staff to move forward discussing with Root and Barrel the issue with looking at a lease agreement? I think that's what he's up, not just engaging them, but does the mayor and council want your manager and your attorney to start discussions with them on this issue?
Yes, because there will be no presentation until there can be discussion between you guys and the Root and Barrel party.
And for my part, I will say that I don't, I have always been at pains to make sure that the council was aware if I was doing something that I thought was going to be extraordinarily time intensive or lead in some direction that I knew for certain the council wasn't interested in going. I don't know that this issue is such a thing. I don't feel like I would be, treading on your trust in me to go speak with them about an offer and to bring it back to see if it's something that you thought was adequate. So that's why I say I don't feel like I need direction on this particular thing to see if they can make an offer that the council's interested in entertaining.
Fair enough. I think that's the first step before we'll ever get a presentation back that we can vote yes or no, is to first allow you guys to engage in a conversation.
Okay, Counselor,
So did
I
your
need
motion-
help.
Did we just have the conversation you need to have?
I think we did, yes.
Okay,
So
so
we don't
can you
need a
withdraw your
motion?
motion?
Yes, I withdraw a motion.
Okay, takes care of that. All right, let's move on. I think I covered, is there anything else that anybody wants to add to the
So don't we need a
agenda?
motion to amend the agenda for the item of the hot?
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. Does anybody else have anything they want to add before we move on? If not, let's have a motion. Joe, would you like to?
I'll make the
Okay.
motion to amend the agenda to add the hot spot item.
Those two items,
And
okay.
it's
Is that second? Mr. Lewis, second. All in favor? You got a question or? a
No,
second? Oh,
in
okay.
favor.
Okay. All right, I think we can move on now to the approval of the consent agenda for September the 8th. Everybody's had a chance to look at the consent agenda, so anyone want to make a motion that we adopt as presented? Have a motion?
I'll
Have a
second.
several seconds. All in favor? Okay, good to go. All right, we're a minute or two late, but we start our public hearing at 6:05 for the Ingalls development at Holly Springs Plaza. Mr. Setzer, sir, you're up. And if anyone's here to speak in for or against whatever, just let us know after Mr. Setzer speaks. Okay?
Good evening, Mayor, Town Council. Tonight I have a public hearing for Ingalls Market. They have been going through the special use process to redevelop the Holly Springs Shopping Center off of Hyatt Road. They submitted, in your packet, you'll see their application where they're requesting to redevelop 19.92 acres. The parcel is currently zoned C3 for commercial highway, and they're requesting to build a new grocery store, retail shops, a gas pump, and a car wash. The car wash is not noted on the original application, but is you'll see it in the plans. In your packet, you will see the domestic water and sewer allocations that we did prior to. You'll see a letter from our town engineer on that. You'll see the aerial drawing of the parcel, the site that we all know is the former Walmart. You'll see the aerial, the current zoning that's in red with the residential to the east and commercial to the north, and a combination of residential and commercial to the south. Of course, you got the highway to the west. And then a new one is new map. It's probably the first time we've seen it. Is our comprehensive plan map, our future land use map, which shows this area was designated urban mixed use. And I've included the definitions for urban mixed use since this is our first special use, anything since the comp plan's been adopted. And then I've got all the plans with the renderings of the signs in there as smaller. The representatives from Ingalls will talk after me, but they've got some bigger plans they can go over with the entrances and parking and so on. Planning board did review this at their July meeting, and planning board recommended the approval of the application as presented. They didn't make any recommendations. A neighborhood compatibility meeting was held back in, I believe, back in May, and we had only 5 people were present at that after mailing out about 25 letters to everybody within 400 feet. There really wasn't any request at that meeting either. We have that on record as well, and the sign-in sheet. Everybody that was there was just interested to see what was going to happen and so on. So if you have any questions for me, that's all I have. I can turn it over to the Ingalls and they can go over their presentation in more detail of what they're going to build and so on.
Gentlemen?
This is Preston Kendall from Ingalls and John Cox from Land Design.
And gentlemen, welcome.
Mayor, council, thank y'all. Thank you for your time this afternoon. I think I've seen most of you before. Can everybody see if we put it right here? Everybody not see? Good. Do I need to stand here to talk, or if I talk loud enough, can I come around?
I think you can come around, whatever works
It's just
for you.
easier to see. This is the site plan that we have as of today. As y'all might know or might not know, we started this process at the end of last year. Started going through some things, and then everything kind of went to a halt. So we had some tenants lined up, and we still have tenants lined up. This may pushed off a little bit, but the Walmart store today, the building that's there today, sits somewhere at about our front doors of our store now, and then the water tank somewhere in this area here. So we took the water tank away. We've worked out how to get water to us for our fire sprinkler system and for the fire sprinkler system for everybody here. So it's going to be the new Ingalls. We're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 big box stores. We're going to have 2 sections right here that's going to be retail for smaller people. We have, like Justin said, we had this in our original plan just kind of blocked out hoping somebody would come, and we've had a tenant come and say they wanted to be here, which was a car wash. Then we're going to put an eye market in just like we did on Georgia Road, the gas station with gas pumps there. So this is kind of our overall plan. We're changing the whole parking lot. We're changing the stormwater, bringing everything up, and John's here. He can answer technical questions on that. The next thing is the DOT and what we're going to do with the red light. Y'all can tell here, there's a ride-in up here. We've been working with the DOT, and just like everywhere else, the DOT's on furlough a little bit. So it's taking us a little longer to work through it. We're working with the DOT. We're talking to them weekly between us, and Land Planning Associates are talking to them, and we haven't got to a plan yet, but we can tell y'all whatever our traffic study we're doing for the DOT, and the DOT come back with whatever they suggest is what we're going to do. So I mean, we're not going to buck or fight. The red light's still going to be there. They might want us to alter a little bit, and we might be doing something different off to get people into the shopping center that doesn't relate to the red light. But we don't know. That's what we're trying to go for now. So if you take that and kind of color it up a little bit, that's kind of what we're going to look like. So we're going to have our rock, brick, a lot of glass, a lot of ephes, a lot of metal work, The shops are gonna look like us. We're gonna try to make it all fit in, tie together, as we do it. So this is kind of, as you can tell, this area here is the top one, and then once you turn the corner and come down, this is the area here. And then, I think everybody in here knows what our gas station looks like. If you drive down Georgia Road, it's basically the same exact thing that we do have. Y'all know today the parking lot's just kind of asphalt, kind of barren. So I think we have a pretty extensive, this is just half of it since it was so big. So this is kind of from the fire department rescue squad's here. Kentucky Fried Chicken's here. So you can tell, I mean, we're really landscaping everything up. We're adding islands to it. We're doing all new parking lot lights. We're adding the islands. We're doing the parking lot lights, which will be full cutoff LED, full cutoff light fixtures. We've worked it. We're doing the landscaping in the rear. And then here's the second half of that. It was so big. As you can tell, we're also doing it in front of our tenants. We're going to do the same thing, new lights, new poles, new asphalt, new everything. Redoing the stormwater pond, we're putting some underground as well, or not? Here.
We were able to accommodate it by revising the rear pond.
Perfect. And then this one here we brought, in case there's any utility questions, this kind of tells where our gas line, water lines, sewer lines are going to go in the building. Most of it's in the front. We got a water line in the back that's going to feed the front of these shops, the car wash, and our gas here. So, a little bit. And then the next is, another thing we have is signage. And we're going to do basically the same as we did at the other store, so you all know exactly what they look like. We'll have our store pylon sign, say us, our pharmacy, specials of the week, and then our Boar's Head, Starbucks, and Chopsticks. We will have a tenant sign for all of our tenants. I know that looks really, really big, tall, but it's the same. It's actually a foot taller than our store sign that's actually out there today. And then a gas sign, just like we have at our other store, which will be the same height as that one. So, and then our signage for our store, our gas station, same as our other one, very generic, very clean. And then the signage for the front of our store, exactly the same. Vineyard, our pharmacy, American owned, the Ingles, fresh foods, the Starbucks up in the window, and then our cafe. So the store itself will look very, very similar. Like I said, a couple of issues we were having was the DOT, and we are working through it. And I think we asked about the town writing a letter saying that this needs to be looked at. So that's something that we would like to have that would help us or help our calls, or at least let them know that y'all are looking at it. They do know we're here tonight. The other was the water. We were having a little bit of issue with the water, but I think that in the past week and a half that the water's been figured out. We're working with your engineers on that, and that seems to be working out great. So I think the project is, from our side, is really coming together. If you have any questions of me, I'll do my best, and then I'll do our engineers here if you have some real technical questions.
Ms. McCray.
I'm just curious, will the present store stay open while you're doing the construction?
Our plan is right now, our plan is today, yes, the store's going to stay open. The tenant, I want to put that back on. So this is where our old store is today. So yes, we have a tenant slated to go into that area. So as of right now, yes, we want to leave the store open. We're gonna not work on a huge area in front of the store so we can still shop and people in the transfer trucks and everything get in and work safely. Unless this tenant comes to us and says, I want to open by this day, then we'll have to make a decision based on them telling us when they want to open. But as of right now, us leaving open through construction's fine.
Yeah, I have kind of an environmental question. That's an awful lot of impervious material here. Have you thought any about what you can do to avoid some really bad runoff that will be going down into the 4-lane?
Well,
in some of these storms we're having now.
Right. We definitely, by adding, some of the landscaping and opening the islands up in here, that helps a little bit. But of course, on a project this size, that's a small amount. One thing we did notice as we went back here, the pond is not operating currently as it should have. It's just, I get probably some storms have eroded the back area. So this pond will actually be increased in size almost twofold, actually.
Is that a biodiversity pond?
Well, and what we'll do in front of that pond to help clean the water up is we'll actually put water quality units. It's basically a large manhole that is created to create a vortex, and it takes the trash, the sediment, and all your floating oils and things like that out. So, and that's a state requirement that we're required to do. So the whole site will be brought up to that standard. Even we'll still have a little bit of water that'll flow to this. You've probably seen this little front pond as you drive in, and even that we'll bring it up to standard as well. But the bulk of the water, I only have maybe 1/10 of this site goes to here. The rest of it comes back to the back, and all of that water will end up being treated for water quality, and additional water quantity will be added just for the additional area that was grass that was where the Walmart, to the left of Walmart.
Any questions from the board?
Yeah, I do, actually.
I've got several coming up. Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Culpepper.
And
Go ahead, Mike.
maybe Justin could, go ahead, Dave.
No, go ahead.
Mine was quick. With EMS out there, there's no, the county been involved with this at all as far as their ingress, egress, that sort of thing?
I mean, the county has been, they received the letters from the neighborhood meeting and this meeting here tonight. They haven't called and hadn't made any requests. I've talked to some of them, they were pretty much aware. They knew one day this was going to be developed when they moved out there, so they knew it wasn't going to stay vacant forever, so.
Okay.
I've actually been back and forth in communication with them myself. I called them to see if they were okay with us putting this parking on the side. That'll likely be employee parking is what we'll designate it as. But we wanted to make sure they were okay with people, and they were fine with it. Their only comment was, there's an odd concrete island that's out there if you go out there, and nobody knows why it was put in, but I told them we'd take it out if they were okay if we took it out. So that was really their only comment they had to me.
Mr. Culpepper?
Just local knowledge, you're talking about ingress off of 64, the bypass there. Don't discount Hyatt Road, the back road that connects from behind your current store to the Highlands Road. It's actually pretty well traveled, and it's pretty narrow. I don't know if you had any discussion with DOT about it or not, but I think you'll find that traffic on that road is pretty heavy. All the people on the Highlands Road are generally take Hyatt Road and come in from the back side of the building.
Well, I'll answer this. You might be right, but
You mean Rogers Road?
Yeah, well, it's Rogers Road to Hyatt.
Yeah.
Isn't it Hyatt Road?
So it's
Or Rogers Road?
Hyatt is the traffic light.
Okay, sorry, Rogers Road.
This
Yes.
road here.
Yes, that's right, sorry.
So we've drove it and we've talked to them about it. I think that there's a neighborhood back there, and we would like to we're going to keep all of our trucks and employees away from it. And I think it would be better to try to keep most of our customers away from it for the shopping center. So that's why we're trying to bring them down and actually do a road in to alleviate from the red light, is to actually let them come all the way down, hit 441, and never really get on it, just kind of stay in and come up. So we're trying to take some pressure off of that road for the people that are back there.
And that may be your argument with DOT of why that turning lane is
Yeah, so we're
necessary.
hoping that continues and flows in. And if you go by there, it's kind of funny. If you go by there and look at the site, because we clean it every year, that DOT bank off, we get a permit to clean it. It almost looks like there's a road going up there now. If you look, it's tiered off a little bit. So that's kind of where this road is, similar. We just knew that this intersection didn't need to take all the traffic coming this direction. So that's why this is to come in and go to any part of it.
Let me ask you, any other council members have a question?
Real briefly, Mr. Mayor, just for council members' edification, staff was aware of and had fielded a request to weigh in with DOT on that ramp from 64, and I advised them not to weigh in while this was pending. So after this is decided, you could have a voice in the road question.
Did anyone from the public have a question they would like to ask? Okay, Mr. Sutcher, I don't hear any further. Did you have a question? Oh, I thought you had a question there. All right, so I don't have anybody signed up to speak. Gentlemen?
Thank y'all for your time.
I will, I guess I need a motion to close the public hearing as was presented.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, gentlemen, thank you for being with us tonight.
Thanks, guys.
There's no further action to take on that, is there, Counselor?
No, so I
Public
believe
hearing.
it's right for board action on consideration on approval of the permit, especially.
Okay.
So, and Mr. Mayor, just to be of some help there, if there's, you can, of course, entertain any discussion you need, but if there's not any, I think the only evidence you've been presented is to establish that it's meets the burdens of the UDO, that you have some evidence also from your planning board that they reviewed it and thought it did as well. So a proper motion would be to approve and issue the special use permit and to adopt the findings of the planning board on the matter.
Okay, so you want to make a motion?
I'll make a
Mr.
motion,
Culpepper?
yeah, but I'd like to ask,
Ms. Bashburn?
do you need anything from us to write a letter to DOT advancing the turning lane to alleviate traffic on the red light?
Just authorization for the manager.
Does that need to be a part of the motion, or no?
Let's entertain it separately since it's.
Okay, well, so moved to authorize a special use permit as approved by the planning board.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay.
And now I do
Second
believe
motion?
it'd be best if you had some discussion and direction from the manager to weigh in on your behalf. about
This
the
is
road.
on the turning lane?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Somebody got a motion or further discussion on that turning lane? You do.
I'll make a motion. I
Okay.
think that would definitely help alleviate the traffic on that, at the red light. So I move that we allow town manager to advocate for DOT to allow that turning lane into the new shopping center.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any further? No further discussion? All in favor? Okay. All right, I have one, that takes care of it. Thank you, Mr. Sutcher. I have one person signed up for the public comment session, and as you know, we're limited to 3 minutes. Mr. Stevens, welcome, sir.
You have asked a hard thing. I'm a pastor. You put me on the clock. My name is Michael Stevens. I pastor the Franklin Church of God, which is up on the hill across from Radio Shack. I'm here tonight to speak concerning item E that's on the new business. It pertains to me because I submitted a request for a permit approximately 4 weeks ago to use the gazebo area for a rally that's going to be held in conjunction with a national prayer event in our nation's capital on September the 26th. The time that I had requested for, I believe, was 11 to 3. The actual event would take place from 12 to 2. It would be a gathering of a multitude of Christian denominations and churches here in Macon County to have a prayer rally for the needs of our country. I've got some guest singers and speakers that are going to be with us that day. A lot of them are going to be local pastors that pastor various churches in various regions and denominations of our county. We're going to have a canned food drive in conjunction with that to raise food items for CareNet. I did want to say this, if the concern is the COVID virus, I wanted to specify a couple of things. As of 4 o'clock this afternoon, the health department said there were 7 active cases in Macon County. There's been 3 permits granted over the past 3 to 4 months, I believe, for usage of the gazebo area. And following each one of these events, there were no significant county outbreaks concerning those events. Lastly, I'll say this, if the council votes tonight to change the measure for the usage of the gazebo area, I would respectfully ask that my permit be grandfathered in under the old guidelines and new permits be applied to the new guidelines that will be set tonight. Do you have any questions for me? Mayor, did I make 3 minutes?
Well, you've got 45 more seconds.
That's a miracle. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. All right. We'll be getting to that discussion a little later. Let's start out with some old business. The first one has to do with
item was brought up for discussion about the last existing structure on Whitmire property, and I believe several of our council members have individually went up there and looked at the structure. I am going to ask our liaison in our rec department, Councilmember Lewis, if he would like to speak on it, since that is kind of, we were looking for recreation purposes for it as well.
Okay. That, and like I say, I think, has everybody been up there, or has everybody had a chance to go? Does anybody disagree that it's unsalvageable? I have no problem with building some kind of open air shed up there at some point for recreation, if that's that's the board's will, but that particular structure is just, the foundation's not even safe, I don't think. And it's obviously a concern to Chief Harrell, and something that his officers are having to deal with, and it's something that the neighbors are not particularly happy about with the inhabitants that that it's attracting. So, but if anybody has any other questions about it, and like I said, I think everybody's been up there. I mean, it's the sooner it come down, the better, I think, in my opinion.
yes, ma'am.
I have not been up there, but when Mr. Culpepper said that there was nothing salvageable, I had no need to go and look at it.
Yeah, my apologies for holding us up for a month on this. Sorry, Chief Harold, but there's not much pumpkin there.
No, I knew it was a go for demolition.
Oh, okay, for those of you not in on the joke, that. Okay, I guess I think we pretty well hashed this out. Let's go ahead for a vote. Go ahead and give the town staff permission to go ahead and demolish it, clean it up. I have a motion, several seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, got your orders there. Discussion on liaisons for the TDA, ABC, and Planning Board. Mr. Culpepper, you're up, sir.
Already, I know I mentioned this at the end of our last meeting, but at our retreat before COVID got in the way of the world, we had discussed the possibility of appointing council members to attend various board meetings that we have authority over as non-voting members, and they can come back and report to the board and hopefully make our town communication more effective and tidier between various boards. If I'm not mistaken, there was support at our retreat for that idea. So I'd like to advance it.
Okay. Anybody?
Mr. Mayor, I might
Yes,
say
sir.
one thing. Is, the only thing that troubles me about this is these TDA, ABC, and Planning Board are all appointed by the by the town board, and they're appointed to give us objective and independent recommendations. And I'm concerned that if we have a member of this board sitting with that committee, it might not give them that independence that I think we expect them to show when they're making recommendations to the board. So I'm not totally against it, but I don't see any real strong benefit to doing that when we're asking for independent outside recommendations to this board, because this board will make the final decision on anything recommended by these three agencies.
I have a question I'd like to direct to Counselor, and that would be this. If we appointed somebody to the planning board, for example, and they're discussing something that is going to require a quasi-judicial hearing, that council member that's sitting there as a liaison with the planning board would have to recuse himself, or this board would have to recuse them from voting on something in a quasi-judicial hearing. So that's one that I just really don't think would be very well to have somebody on there as an appointed official.
And I agree, Mr. Mayor, about the planning board in particular. Now, we're now looking at, there's a brand new chapter 160D in the general statutes that is revised zoning law, and we need to implement it. We've got now until the end of July 2021 to get it done. We, at the moment, have your planning board passing on matters that are quasi-judicial and do come to this council for approval. I'm not sure whether that's going to remain advisable or even legal necessarily once we get the new zoning statute implemented. In the meantime, if you did, I'm not saying you can't have a liaison to the planning board. If you did, I would be really, you've got to be super cautious not to have anything to do with a quasi-judicial matter that comes before it. Otherwise, I mean, I don't think it's certainly lawful to have liaisons to these other entities. And as Jack says, maybe there are reasons, practical reasons that councils would decide it doesn't feel like it should. I don't know. I don't have legal concerns so much about it because, I mean, if I don't know if, for instance, like the TDA, we have had times where people on the council felt like they didn't like the direction TDA was taken. I've always been quick to remind that it is its own authority, and you do have appointment authority over it, but I mean, you can't really steer its decisions otherwise.
Well, the oversight's in purse strings too, right? More or less. I mean, or is it a set amount we give them every year?
Mm-hmm. It's been more like it collects, or the collections are made on room tax for it to then expend.
But they need our authorization to spend it.
No, they have the authority to spend it if they want to.
Yeah.
That's the difference on an authority and a just advisory committee. They are by statute an authority, and they have the authority.
I seem to remember when I covered them though, there was
So
something within their budget.
They have
we had to
always
sign off on.
agreed to a $100,000 baseline budget.
Okay, that is what it was.
And the budget all
Okay.
flows through the town's
Never mind.
account. So
Okay.
that's where.
Never mind. That's what I was thinking. Okay. Do they send us minutes? I know that they're probably not required to, but I mean, do
They're
they?
online. Yeah.
So anybody that wants to know what's going on can.
And they're uploaded monthly.
Okay.
And all their meetings are open to the public.
Mm-hmm. And all of their meetings are covered by the Fourth Estate quite adequately, so. Yes, so, I don't know, Mr. Culpepper, I'm concerned is that I can't really see why at this particular time there's a real need to bring this up. We've talked about this for 3, 4, 5 years.
Yep.
And I just don't see a need for it myself, but if the board wants to.
Well, this feels like a different conversation, almost foreign than the conversation we've had previously about it. But I mean, if I might ask, Jack, you have some experience with the county. I know that they appoint liaisons. Is there a benefit to the county board to have liaisons to the boards they oversee? that we don't benefit from?
Well, it depends on what it is. For example, you might have a liaison to the health board. Well, the health board are all appointed by the county, but they're also operating under state, the state laws. And so basically the role of the liaison, if they do anything, is basically report back and forth what's going on. And I don't know, otherwise they can't vote and they can't make motions or anything like that. They're just pretty much an observer. Like if I wanted to go to the PDA meeting, I could go, but I couldn't vote. If anybody on the board could go if they wanted to.
You don't think it's...
If you're interested in something that's going on and want to find out something about it, then the only point I was making is that the meetings are open and available to anybody who wants to attend. Do we need a special envoy to that particular agency to tell us what's going on? If we do, then we need to appoint a liaison. Otherwise, I don't see any real urgent need for it at this point.
I do see the need, but I respect that you may not see an immediate benefit.
Okay. Anything else you want to bring up on it?
No.
Okay. I don't think there's a motion or anything. I think we kind of discussed this well enough. Okay, let's move on. New business. Proclamation for Constitution Week. I'll read the proclamation. Is there someone from the Daughters of the American Revolution? There she is. How are you? I'm sorry, folks. I do not recognize people just by their eyes. Okay. Proclamation Constitution Week 2020. Whereas September the 17th marks the 233rd anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designated September the 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, it is proclaimed by the Mayor of Franklin, North Carolina, that September 17th through the 23rd is hereby designated as Constitution Week, and all citizens are encouraged to reaffirm the ideals of the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties, remembering lost rights may never be regained. In witness hereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the town of Franklin to be affixed on this date. Now I need a motion to allow me to do that. Do I hear a motion to allow me to sign this proclamation?
Second.
And a second. I have all in favor. Okay. Are you here to have your picture made? Come on around back here. And you may remove your mask for long enough to make a picture.
That's what we were gonna ask. I promise I won't worry.
So good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you. All right, I'm going to sign it.
You're not kidding.
Well, you. All right, and if you will carry it down to the clerk, he will attest to it. And thank you, ladies, so much for being here. Certainly. Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right, is Sydney here? Hi, Sydney. You want to tell me how to pronounce your name? I'm not really sure.
It's Sydney Giaquinto.
Giaquinto.
Yes, sir.
Great. You want to come up and tell us what's on your mind?
Yes, thank you. All right, I have some materials to pass out, and some of you may have to share. I'll just start passing it out right here. Thank you. Oh, actually, I need one. Whoops.
It is so nice to have you with us tonight.
Thank you for having me. All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Sydney Giaquinto. I am 20 years old, and I am currently a sophomore at Western. I am taking film classes and I'm interested in other creative endeavors along with an interest in business entrepreneurship. I have a vision that I would like to share with you about some plans I have to enhance the beauty of our lovely town. Rest assured, I am not here to ask for money. My goal tonight is to inform you of my plans and gain your support. I have prepared a PowerPoint, but due to time restrictions tonight, I have prepared a handout for each of you to look at. If you would please turn to page 2 and follow along with me. Thank you. All right. So the outline of my plan serves to discuss the importance of public art, the examples and effects in communities, and the plan for public art in our town. So statistics show new data released by the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis and the National Endowment for the Arts about how economically suitable art is for communities. For instance, this study found that the arts contributes $763.6 billion to the U.S. economy, more than agriculture, transportation, or warehousing. The arts employ 4.9 million workers across the country with earnings of more than $370 billion. Furthermore, the arts exported $20 billion more than imported, providing a positive trade balance. And an example of how public art has helped other communities is portrayed in this area called the Grove. This girl named Grace McCammond, she said that murals build a sense of community, and she's from St. Louis, Missouri. And basically, they had this area where no one wanted to go. It was kind of a run-down area of town, and she decided that she wanted to put up public art. And so since that time, everybody wants to go over there, and it's known as a local hotspot. And so I found that very interesting, just to demonstrate the positive effects of public art. And another study found that according to Bach and the Knights Foundation Soul of the Community Initiative, they surveyed some 43,000 people in 43 cities. And they found that social offerings, openness, and welcomeness, and importantly, the aesthetics of a place, its art, parks, and green spaces, ranked higher than education, safety, and the local economy as a driver of attachment. And I just found this very, very interesting. And the next page displays some public art in larger cities. Now, I found this personally incredible, just including the time that they had to do all of these stairs. But I would think about how people are going to stop in this park and they're going to take pictures, and then they're going to invite their friends and family and say, whoa, you have to come to this town, look at this. And then businesses are going to want to come here. People are going to want to move here. And so it's all very, very good effects everywhere. In New York City, this started with the New Deal and a lot of their efforts with the formation of the Treasury Department section of painting and sculpture in 1934. And it commissioned artists through competitions to create really high quality work for federal buildings. And how they did it is 1% of each federal building's cost was to be reserved for artistic decoration. And the reason behind this was to build morale and create jobs, because you need somebody to construct it and install all of these things. And with the increase in public art, you reduce crime. And also, it's economically viable. In New York, they have this art project called the Waterfalls, which cost about $15.5 million, but they brought in, according to the Public Art Fund, $69 million for the city. And there are 1,400 cultural institutions in New York that collectively bring in more than $6 billion to the economy. And I know that we're not New York City, but I know that there will be economic success even in our town with increased public art. And here's a picture of the Waterfall Project in New York City. And so the public art plan that I have for our town, the goal is to brighten empty wall spaces in our town and to enrich the town and inspire creativity and the community, along with increasing the town's tourist attractions. The locations that I've designated for these murals to be at is the art room and the Wells Fargo alleyway, the wall right there on that side. The Divas, the back side of that wall. and the side where the Rathskeller, where you go down to the Rathskeller. And the ideas for the first 3 murals have already been designed, along with at least 3 professional artists that are already backing the project, along with 2 investors that are already involved. And the plan for funding will be to secure financial support from local arts patrons and state and federal grants. And the last few pictures feature some wonderful murals in larger cities, Chicago and New York City. A lot of these areas are just wonderful for what they do. And an interesting fact also is we look at this artwork and we're so amazed by it, but they also have a lot of programs in larger cities that use children. They use kids that come from maybe poor families where crime happens a lot. And they've found that these not only benefit the communities, but the young generations. And so I see this as not only helping our town, helping our community, and helping bring tourists in, but I see this as helping our young generations to grow up and change the world for the better. Thank you.
Miss Cindy, I have a question. Did you graduate from Franklin High?
Yes, sir, I did.
I have off and on kind of discussed some of this with the art students. This is something that I think we've got a lot of support for. I think what we have to do, though, is bring all these ideas together under one umbrella if we can. I am a big proponent of public art. I know Ms. McRae and the others sitting, Ms. Mashburn, we all see the value. I think what we haven't seen is how we can bring it together. And it's going to take your generation, so you're under orders.
Yes, yeah, and I have a whole plan for having this be put into effect.
That would be wonderful. If I appoint a committee of the town council and whoever, we need to get your contact information and include you in it, because I think we have discussed this for, it seems like forever we have talked, and I think it's time. I think right now during COVID and the lockdowns that we're under right now, this would be a very appropriate time to look very strongly at some public art and murals. If I get called about Silva's mural one more time, so if you would give us all your contact information, how we might talk to you, and anybody that you know to talk to, and Ms. McRae and Ms. Mashburn and other council members, I hear this a whole lot, and I'm sure y'all do too.
Well, it sounds to me like.
Yes, ma'am.
Like Sydney has this in hand.
It does.
So I think maybe we just need to give her blessing.
Oh, you got it. What year are you in at Western?
Oh, my second year.
Second year, good.
Yeah.
Good.
And I want to brag on her a little bit. I don't know if you saw the Smoky Mountain News 3 weeks ago that interviewed her about having been Elizabeth Kelly in the
oh yeah,
for the Women's History Trail, and I think she did a great job with that. So you know that we're all on your side, Sydney.
Thank you.
I want to ask the council, how do we proceed on this? I mean, really, we have talked about it, and we've got the easels are out there on the side of these buildings. Just Mr. Phillips.
But I suggest, I mean, I would love to see large-scale art too, but in the meantime, before funding comes for large-scale art, I'd like to focus on smaller-scale art. I mean, I see it all the time in photos on the internet, but somebody will turn a utility box into a ladybug, or they'll take where a pipe comes into a wall and they'll turn that into a 3D scene. I guess, I mean, I want to see the big, large-scale art, but I'd also like to see small-scale art, like maybe going into an alleyway, a 2 foot by 3 foot. Interesting picture until we can get to a stage where we're actually doing large scale art. So maybe to get the ball rolling, just doing a couple little small quirky projects around town. You know, people have turned drain pipes into a Super Mario scene where they paint it green and they've got the flowers coming up. Just interesting outside the box ideas that may not be large scale.
Well, I'm a big proponent of trash cans. We've got some beautiful art. The only town I've ever seen where we've got art on our trash cans. Yes?
I'm assuming these stores are privately owned buildings, so I mean, other than our blessing, there's really nothing there's nothing other to say than God be with you, correct?
Correct.
God be with you. I think it's a good
All
idea.
right, thank you.
Stay in touch with us, Ms.
I
Sidney,
will, and I'll
please.
provide my contact information. Thank you.
We appreciate it, and thank you so much for coming
Welcome.
tonight. Okay. All right, Mr. McKenzie, you have a item that you'd like to bring before the board, and it's so good to see you too, sir.
It's good to see y'all. Thank you, Mr. Manager, Attorney, Council, Mayor, Town staff. I don't know what Joe did to get kicked out. And just real quick, I would like to say, I'd like to thank Ms. Jigwinto. I definitely think that's been a big focus, public art, for a lot of businesses, people in town. I would actually encourage you to reach out, if you haven't already, to the Chamber of Commerce and the Main Street businesses, and find examples of things that are already done and make other things jealous. 828 Cafe is probably the best example I've seen. Somebody taking their space and turning it into something. I mean, that's just the old DMV building. I drive by it and there's always something to do there. So, on to my business though. So my business has been closed since March 17th. We're intending to open a week after next. We're going to remove some indoor seating, just kind of change things around, provide a little bit better social distancing, a little bit better safety for our customers. And also, we also want to be able to come in. We've probably been allowed to be open for the last few months here and there, but just we want to have a profitable P&L and bottom line. So we're trying to find good ways to provide enough business for us to make it and customers a safe environment. So we'd like to request on behalf of our business at 58 Stewart Street, which is about 25, it's approximate, I measured it today, about 25 feet wide, maybe about 12 feet out past where our awning is, takes up about half of what is currently Stewart Street. It runs between our actual business space and the parking lot right there next to the attic. And we would like to maybe put out just a 12, 10, maybe 10 foot by 25 foot tent or a series of tents out there, just so we have some outdoor seating, maybe some outdoor buffer space for people. But as that road is a thoroughfare, at some point it's been on the Powell Ranch, it's technically a city street, so I just wanted to reach out and see if there'd be a possibility of having it temporarily closed, maybe for a few months or till the end of the year. I don't imagine we'll have seating out there past November because it's going to get cold. But I wanted to bring that to the city council and see if there would be any opposition or any thoughts or any questions you'd have to ask me about it. I know Mr. Horton came out just a little while this afternoon and looked at it. I know most of you have been there or been in the shop at some point. And I know that I also addressed it with the manager that I know because the city has its certain ordinances, even if I'm allowed to use the space, even though ABC will extend my permit of alcohol, that probably is going to run into some issues with the city. So we are willing to work with that if best or however is necessary.
Yes, Jack.
Like Mr. Kim said, I stopped by there and I was fortunate enough to be able to talk to him and see firsthand what he's talking about. And that alleyway is not really a street. I wouldn't want to take it off the Powell bill if we get any money for it, but what he's proposing to do would have very little impact on that street, and I think it would be a benefit to him. And I would hope that the board would support allowing him this temporary use of that. He's not even talking about alcohol, he's just talking about having a table to serve food out there presently to see how this works out. So looking at it firsthand, I didn't really see any problem with it, and if the board wants to take some action, I'm willing to make a motion.
And I did have I should address, I also asked the owner of April's Flowers, the owner of the attic, the owner of the bookstore, as well as the property owner, Mr. Swafford, and adjoining, some of the people that, are in that area. Actually asked Mr. Talent, he lives down the end of that street. If it'd be an imposition on anybody, nobody had any oppositions to it. There would still be a stretch of road large enough for trucks, deliveries to come in, cars to pass through if needed, so.
Mr. Horton, you want to make a motion to that effect, sir? If nobody else has got any
allow
questions?
temporary use of that space, and he'll give you the outlines of the dimensions of it in order to place his temporary tent to be able to serve some additional customers directly behind the Rathskeller.
I have a second. Would you like to make a motion? I think you did make a motion, and we have a second. Any further discussion?
Are we talking about shutting the street down or just allowing the tent to be there?
No.
The street will still be accessible.
Okay.
You would lose about a 12-foot stretch of that road, but you'd still have about a 14-foot stretch on the other side.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor? Okay.
And I'll be sure to reach out to Summer and everybody else whenever I have better details of what we're going to do to make sure it fits with y'all's approval. So,
Thank you, Adam.
Thank y'all.
Good to see you, sir.
thank y'all for your service.
All right, presentation on the K-9 program. Chief Bill Harrell, you're up, sir. Thank you, young lady. We appreciate it so much.
Hopefully this will just be a brief overview. I've had the opportunity to speak with the council, men and women, individually at different times about the rebirth of our K-9 program, and very excited to say that I think everybody was in favor of that, and hopefully this will just be a formal baptizing of the program to get back on track. And I'll start with the potentially concerning news that the startup of the program is approximately $18,000 and a recurring cost of $1,000, which consists of veterinarian visits and treatments and the food itself for the dog. However, through some very generous presentations and pledges and donations, that is taken care of. And our concerned citizens of the county have recognized how important this tool is to law enforcement. And in the 3 months I've been here, there have been a number of times that I wish we would have had our K-9. We were assisted a couple times with the county, but however, K-9s are not robots. And so they can only last for so long. And our most recent event was the chase that we had that ended up in one of our local communities. And the offender was on foot in the community, actually entered a couple of homes before we were able to apprehend him. And the K-9 that was available, the only one out of their round of dogs that was available, could only last 15 minutes in the heat. And we didn't have anything that we could contribute. So that offender was on foot for quite some time in that community. And I can go on with a number of other examples to include where I previously served in that community in Highlands, that we oftentimes would lend our K-9s to the county because theirs were unavailable for a number of reasons. Again, they cannot work 24/7. They are not robots. So without further ado, I just want to present to the council a request for your blessings to move forward with our program, which is fully funded.
Okay, any discussion, questions from the board? Yes, Jack.
The suspect that they tracked down was close to mine in David's neighborhood, by the way.
Yes.
I'm glad they
Very
caught
close.
him. And I didn't have a chance to talk to Chief Harrell about this in some detail, as many of you have. And it seems to me that this is an additional asset or tool for our police department that really is not going to cost us anything. Not going to cost the taxpayers anything, and so it looks like a win-win situation. And I think it'll give us, before we have to actually come up with any additional money after this year, if we ever have to, it'll give us 6 to 9 months experience to see how it's working out before we make a long-term commitment.
Okay.
So I would support the board's authorization to go ahead and accept the contribution and acquire the dog for the police
You
department.
want to put it in a motion?
I'll put it in a motion.
Okay. You want to redo it, or does anybody have any questions of Jack?
I'm not
Good
getting
job.
So it's, I really appreciate whoever is making this contribution. And I'd like to say one more thing while I'm talking, is I appreciate Chief Harrell's being very proactive about getting out, and I see a lot more visibility in the community. I'm watching my speed even closer now than I ever did before. I don't want to end up on the front page of the paper with a traffic ticket, but I don't expect to do that. But I think I see a lot more visibility, and I appreciate the job that the chief and our police department employees are doing for the town.
Absolutely. Any further questions of Chief Harrell? All right, we got
a motion.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then we'll have a second, then we'll have discussion.
I thought I had a second.
Right here.
And a third.
Right here and right there.
Okay.
And now we got discussion.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, one of the hardest things, or the easiest thing to do is to get something for free for a while and then all of a sudden it ain't free no more. I know that we've got, you know, there's probably, you can justify a need for the dogs. We've had this discussion. A lost leader early on is great, and it's gone after a year. There may be a second or third dog being asked for. And I just wondered if the department has some plans to defray the costs of the dogs going forward rather than this initial gift from the citizen.
Yes, sir. I've actually been approached by several very generous community citizens that are already asking how they can donate to the cause. And several that have also asked about a second canine, how they could pledge money toward that. And so there's been just basically an outpouring of support by our community for a canine program.
So you would not expect it would become a burden on the actual budget going from year to year?
No, sir. And actually, again, I had the opportunity to birth 2 canines for the town of Highlands. And to my knowledge, unless they've spent anything on them since I have left, they have not spent anything on them in the decade that I established the program there.
Further questions? Have a motion and a second. Motion and a second on the floor. All in favor? Okay.
Thank you.
Chief, get that dog. Okay, discussion on gazebo reservations. Madam Manager, Counselor.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council. Kind of wanted to get some direction from the board in regards to how we do current gazebo reservations. It's in your agenda packet, what your current form looks like, and just really wanted to get some guidance tonight with council. We have frozen current reservations for at least probably the past 3 or 4 weeks. The last one that I approved was probably over a month ago, and it's the next item on your agenda about a street closing request for Constitution Day. Mr. Joe Saminsky submitted that, so that's the last one I've approved. The others who have come before us, I know that they've submitted proposals, but we have stopped accepting them till we can get a better understanding of what the town council desires the use of the gazebo for. I do think, and Ms. Mashler may speak on this too, I do think there is another request that was approved back in February. I mean, that gazebo is used quite a bit. It is interesting though, you know, we saw, you know, pre-COVID, we had maybe 1 or 2 requests a month, and now we're seeing anywhere from like 3 to 4 a week. So that's why we just wanted to get some clear direction from our attorney and our counsel on what your process would be for gazebo reservations going forward. And John, I don't know if you'd like to speak to anything.
I'd be happy to. So as your manager mentions, you had a really rapid proliferation of requests to use particularly the gazebo area. And some of them were through the process of the parades and demonstrations ordinance, which caused us to take another look at that. I would never advise you in the direction of intentionally trying to stifle speech, and I can promise you that's not what this is about. The difficulty is the sudden rapid increase of intensity of use in that particular property that you control, because you know you lease that through the county, caused us to say, let's stop and see if we understand what the council's intent for that property is, because you are permitted to have reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions. They are very closely scrutinized by the courts, but you can have time, place, and manner restrictions that say speech has to be allowed, it has to be, you know, permitted as freely as possible while keeping in mind public safety and concerns of that nature. And that's, I think to that end, you have a decent ordinance that controls that. You don't have to make every inch, because it's time, place, and manner. You don't have to make every square inch of the town available for any kind of use at any time. And so, again, that's what leads us to say, when you have a sudden boom in requests for that one particular piece of property, that for starters, you know, your last meeting you canceled an event, and said, let's keep that reserved for some town use on occasions to have a photo opportunity for our, in place of our Pumpkin Fest. We need some direction from you as far as what you would like to see about the potential uses of the gazebo. And I think that based on Chief Harrell's recommendation about safe use of it as at the moment, what we'd really like to ask you to consider is a moratorium on the use other than as reserved by you for town uses on the gazebo area for any other purposes. Again, I want you to always respect, and I know you do, First Amendment rights. Very helpfully, right across the street, the county has designated a free speech zone, and that's where, for a couple of the applicants that you know, expressed concerns about having their permits either held about the gazebo area or turned down, have been directed in that direction, and every indication we have from the county is that they mean what they said. This is open to be a free speech zone. You have not made such a determination about the gazebo. So, again, I think we would like to have some direction from you, but are asking you to consider for at least while there is a declared state of emergency to implement a moratorium on the use of the gazebo area except as reserved by the town.
Yes, ma'am.
I guess I'm kind of like Mr. Stevens out there. I'm really not involved in this as far as the setup, but for the past couple of years, there's been an event in the fall that's called the Come Together. It's a recovery event. And I had participated in that before, so over the weekend, I got an email from the lady that gets everything together for it. And she had asked if I would be involved this year. And so I was thinking this was on our agenda, and she said, oh, so I started messaging her. And she said, well, I've already reserved it. And apparently she reserved the gazebo in February or March. She's paid already some people to come, and I'm not here advocating, I'm just saying there may be some people out there. I said, well, we're having a meeting tonight, and I will certainly raise your issues to the board when they decide to vote. You've been up there before, Mr. Mayor. There's not been a huge crowd. I mean, it's been very well socially distanced even in the past. But she said she wanted that if it were allowed, that she would have all kinds of safety precautions. And once again, I'm not advocating on anyone's behalf. I'm just stating that she thought because she did it and the restrictions had went up some, that she was still going to be allowed to have it. So I'm just putting that out there, that was October the 2nd was when, on a Friday night for about 3 hours. They always, what they do, they just have a few speakers come at different times up to the gazebo. They have some music, and then they have luminaires set up for those in memory of the people that have passed away from overdoses. And so I'm just bringing that up too before we get into anything.
Oh, yes, Mr. Collins.
Is this a health issue? I mean, what is the issue that we're focused on? To me, it would be a health issue. And doesn't the state give us the guidelines as to what they recommend gathering of a place like that? And it could change from session to session or week to week. What, you know, if it was required that whatever was the guideline from Raleigh that we would use would be in place there, what would be a prevailing reason not to allow its continued use?
I know that the number right now is 50 outdoors.
Yes.
There is a number, and if it
There
requires
is.
masks and social distancing, let's, put the same requirement on there. But that would give everybody equal opportunity to continue to use it. That's just what I'm thinking.
One point to that, you're quite right. The executive order that's in place at a given time, I think lawfully limits the number of people that can gather in any one place. That permitting gathering in that particular location under those state guidelines still requires somebody to, and again, your whole permitting process is to try to, very much for public safety reasons, to say how many people are coming and what kind of things are you going to do so that your law enforcement, your police department can know how to adequately protect public safety. And so knowing that you can do that is the question that I think we have.
I think that what the issue is going to be is that if we reject one, we're going to have to reject all. In fairness, Mr. Collins, don't you? Yeah.
Yes, that or enforce it.
Well,
that's going to be the issue, is trying to count heads if in fact there is a number, whether it be 50, 75, or 100, and if it's required to wear masks, then we're going to have to enforce it, or otherwise we wouldn't be treating everybody equal.
Exactly, Mr. Culpepper.
I've always been under the assumption, and comfortably so, that our permitting of the gazebo town square area was basically for scheduling so that we didn't have a conflict of interest with two parties trying to overflow each other. I'm uncomfortable with us trying to pick and choose anybody. That being said, I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's the people's square, and I do think that we need to allow people to gather there peacefully at scheduled times in which we are in control of the scheduling.
Well, I think that's a very valid point, but I think the issue right now is public safety. That has caused us to close down the Pumpkin Fest. Festivals, all kind of events have been closed across the state. This is not something that just Franklin's doing. I even learned the other day the Pepper Festival was closed down. It drew 17,000 people. It has not been easy, and you have to empathize with people. But I agree with Mr. Collins. If we're going to do it, we have to enforce it.
So John, what's the either or? I mean, there's an either or, right? I mean, it's what it sounded like. There's an either or.
Yes, sir. I mean, the question for the council is, this piece of property that you have control of, is it available for limited purposes, particularly at the moment? And again, it is about the safety of the moment and dealing with the pandemic, or what? Because I mean, if your direction to staff is to try to enforce the limits that are under the current reopening 2.5 or whatever it's called, I think, and maybe Chief Harrell needs to speak to that. I don't know what that looks like in terms of enforcement. So, our intent was to try to put the brakes on, again, a rapid increase in the use of that property to make sure that the council is comfortable with it as a matter of public safety.
How do we handle that if, and I'm going back to what I originally said, what do you do if we put the brakes on it now? What about like the lady that reserved it in March, or before COVID? Is there a difference or not? I'm just asking.
Here's the thing, is anybody on the board want us to open it up first come, first serve, like it's always been, without any restrictions on number of people, social distancing, or masks? If that's where the board's going, I want to hear it, because I don't think it is, and that's not where I'm going. So then if it's not that, do you shut it down totally, or do you just adhere to whatever the state restrictions are? The hard part of that is just the enforcement of it. I mean, it'd be very hard to come and start counting heads and say after 50 people can't come around and, you know, check your masks and stuff. That may be enough burden in itself.
To your point, Joe, I mean, if you do, there is no choosing whether or not to. We have to. I mean, we can't just, I'm agreeing with you to say, I mean, if we're going to allow it, then there can't be more than however many people the current state law says, and it has to be enforced.
Well, how are you going to enforce it? My question is, if you have 51 people there and you only can have 50, are you going to take that 51st person and lock them up?
Which one was 51?
Yeah, and which one was it? You know, how are you going to enforce it? It sounds like it'd be impossible to try to enforce that. My only question that I would have is, what's been our rules before is about who could use the gazebo? But see, we've had, you know, I don't think anybody would have any objection to somebody having a candlelight vigil at the gazebo. But if the Grand Dragon from the Ku Klux Klan wanted to meet out there, we'd probably have some reservations about that. So what kind of rules do we now currently have to screen and allow people to use that public property for their particular purpose?
You bring up an interesting case, and I think the case is Skokie. That you cannot, because you do not like a particular organization such as the Nazis, you cannot make the determination on that. So I feel like, and I may be wrong, the council can override me on this, that if we're going to close it, we have to close it regardless of what the circumstances are, what the organization is. Because we cannot, if everything was open, we would have to let the Ku Klux Klan of the Nazis gather under Skokie. So therefore, as where I'm sitting, I think that the situation right now until this emergency is over, if we close it, we have to close it for all, or we're going to get into, what about the 51st person? Yes,
well, you're closing it, just a clarification, you're not closing it, you're suspending the use of it until the pandemic allows us to reopen it up. And those who have applications in should be first in line to use it if they've already made an application to use it, and it meets the criteria that the town has set forth.
When we open it back up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would agree with that totally. Yes, Mr.
At the end of the day, this is an illusion of permission given by the town. If 51 people or 500 people want to go up there and sit on town square, the only enforcement option we have is whatever Chief Harold decides to do. I mean, this is an illusion of permission in the whole scheme of things. It's a scheduling thing. And unless we're willing to have our police department arrest people who's the 51st person or who aren't granted a permission slip, then we're just talking about nothing.
Well, I don't think we're envisioning in arresting anybody or issuing citations. I think we're just asking. Oh, I'm sorry.
Chime in.
The only thing I wanted to present to you all for consideration, if you decide to move forward with continuing the usage of it, would be manpower. And I would suggest that you take into consideration, if you're going to allow this to move forward, and that's your, obviously your decision to make, is that we consider each individual group that hosts an event up there that is going to require our presence, that you talk to the group about taking care of the calls for the off-duty officers that may be required to be there to provide safety for the event. Only because our budget does not allow for that. We haven't planned for all these things prior to my arrival anyway, for a lot of events that have been spawning in recent days.
All right, so Counselor, where are we right now? I'm going to ask you to referee, jump in here and recap what we need to do.
If the council would like to see us explore an incorporation of security cost into your existing parades and demonstrations ordinance that would get to the point that Chief Harold's discussing, we can do that. That ordinance is a police power ordinance and doesn't require, any kind of lengthy examination. You can adopt at your next meeting. That's a way to move forward.
But there is nothing to stop the town from saying we're not using the gazebo for anything until such time as the health emergency is over.
Correct.
There are other areas that are available
Yes,
to
sir.
be used, but we are the ones charged with public safety.
As a legal matter, I think that your current ordinance is sufficient to allow activities to move forward. There's adequate alternatives to the gazebo space, and yes, you could say that particular space is under a moratorium.
And actually, I don't think this council has the ability to lessen any requirement from the executive order. We can strengthen or make them rougher.
Correct.
Or more inclusive. Okay.
So,
All right, yes, sir.
Is this where we're at? Are we gonna figure out that it's probably fruitless to figure that we can actually enforce anything, and then figure that there is a likely chance of certain gatherings to not be in compliance with Raleigh? And if with that in mind, we believe it's a reasonable remedy just to shut everything down until the COVID kind of passes? Is that where we're at right now?
I think from the standpoint of the town and that particular piece of property, yes.
We're not getting a lot of support. I don't think we can charge the next $200, whatever it takes to have two cops there for 2 hours, whatever it was. I don't think we're going there with this. And so the question is, do we open it up following the rules, knowing we'd have to find some way probably to enforce the rules, and that's burdensome, or to have the moratorium, and if it was, it'd probably have to be across the board.
If we had the moratorium, it would be across the board, because I don't think we could pick or choose which we would allow if we do declare a
Even if
moratorium.
we had prior reservations.
I don't know about that prior reservation. I didn't know about that, quite frankly.
Yeah, and I'm afraid to say I do think it's got to be across the board, and regardless of whether you reserved it or not, because again, it's not about who is planned to speak or who plans to be there. It's you have identified as safety issue that you're going to have a difficult time providing public safety.
How could we work with them, Dinah, on helping them find a suitable place to set up to do this? Do you think that
Yeah, I
there's a
didn't.
possibility?
I didn't ask to get in that far. It was right before the meeting started
Yeah.
that we were discussing, because she did say she had already paid some cost basing it upon the gazebo. But I don't know if there's other limitations. I mean, I would think with the county also. I mean, you could do your luminaires and everything over in the free speech, but it still limits her entertainment because she was planning to use the gazebo for that, and the speaking. So I'm not sure.
Does anybody want to make the pitch for opening it up without any restrictions?
Not without any restrictions, with following the state guidelines.
But you're satisfied that it could be enforced?
No, I don't think anything's enforceable. You can have 100 people up there right now.
Let me-
What can we do?
I might have I have a solution to throw out. Michael, you have a service in the parking lot at your church, don't you?
We've been inside our building since mid-April.
But haven't you had services outdoors that
Yes.
work quite correctly? Could something like this be accommodated by one of our churches?
Mr. Mayor, I'm really trying to prevent highlighting a local church.
Okay.
There's something about the gazebo in that it is viewed as the people's property, the seat of the public square. And to have an event in that area carries a symbolic meaning more than it does just being on that particular piece of real estate. It's going to be difficult to, we're estimating to have more than 50 people. I'm not going to try to say anything different than that. We're going to advocate the wearing of masks. We're going to advocate the social distancing, but also under the recognition that every man and woman there is a free person to do as they choose. And we're going to do the best we can. I would say this: when we did, however many applications have been submitted, were submitted with the knowledge of the guidelines of usage as they are right now. So I have no input here, but I would ask the board to consider, if you do vote a moratorium to shut down the gazebo, that you would at least allow those that have submitted applications prior to this night's decision to still be granted.
Be up to the board. That would be up to the board.
I'd like to add that we did have at least 3 fairly large-scale events during COVID times in which numbers were much higher than they are right now through downtown and at the gazebo.
And that's actually what the person that reserved it said. I assumed because those events were held there that I was still going to be allowed. And that was what they were kind of basing on because of the larger one.
In all actuality, we're probably much more likely to get a large crowd there if we close the gazebo down than if we leave the gazebo open. I mean, and that's looking at it from a public health, public safety standpoint. I mean, that's reality.
I think we've had 2 applications that have tentatively certainly been accepted. We believe that, I think that those both would stand a high, we believe they stand a high chance of following the guidelines of Raleigh.
That recovery event will not be, it's not being as large as they've hoped for, is what I would say in the past, and it has been very well social distance in the past. Everybody sort of did. I don't foresee any
And if we had to have police there on 1 or 2 occasions, we could probably absorb it. Well, maybe we could go with those 2, but then a moratorium until some stated time for the rest.
Those are the only 2 we've got pending that you know of?
I'll have to double check the book, but we halted our reservations at least because it's gotten to where it's 3 to 4 a week versus 1 or 2 a month. So I mean, I can go back and double check, and you could say anything that has been actually accepted and approved prior to this meeting, we could move forward. But those who were pending or in limbo, that would be at the discretion of the board.
Okay, so where it looks like right now, we're sort of in between of no meetings. We have a moratorium, but we're going to allow the 2 as grandfathered in. And is that where we are right now?
For the sake of the discussion, I'll make that motion, but the 2 that are grandfathered in would have to comply with whatever the Raleigh standards are.
Right, and would that include the gathering of 50 people?
Yeah, whatever Raleigh says.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I know you made that motion, but just the fact that the public does know we're not picking and choosing. These were already in place and we're not trying to limit them. We're just, because they thought they were able to have it, and that's why the moratorium would not affect them.
Joe, let me ask you this. If one of these 2 groups cannot comply with the numbers, there are other places that they can go where they can up their numbers. It's just on the gazebo property that you're...
Well, that's all we're talking about is the gazebo property.
Yes, absolutely. Yes,
in fairness, if that's the motion, I think it behooves us to look at the backlog of other applications that have also come in that have...
I agree.
We can't just say 2 people that we like, or...
I'm not sure I know the 2 people.
Well, I don't know. I'm just, apparently there must be reams of paper of other people that are trying to get the gazebo. I still don't know that I would support even closing it off at all, but I think we would want to include everybody in fairness that has already tried to do it.
Well, let's move on. I think issues like this have been discussed since 1700 and something, so let's go ahead, Joe. You want to restate the motion, or we're pretty clear on it?
I mean, I made the motion.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna turn blue in the face, but I made the motion. All right.
Okay, I just want to make
Allow
sure.
the 2 and give them the proviso that they have to follow whatever the guidelines are.
But there may be more than 2. Because some of them are booked.
The possibility of more than
Any
2.
ones that have already been
Approved.
put down on the book.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they
Okay.
can follow the
just to make sure I understand Joe's motion is to allow those who've already been approved to use the gazebo following the state guidelines on number of people and distancing and mask and so forth.
Okay.
And then after that, those that are applied but haven't been approved will be put on the waiting list so that when it's opened up again, they will have priority as far as scheduling. Is that
That's
what
not my
your motion is?
motion. I didn't make it. I would modify my motion to that effect if you felt like it would be.
I'll second that
modify the motion.
Is there an expiration date in that motion?
Until the, we don't know. We
No,
don't
no,
know.
I'm not asking for a date, I'm saying when.
Until future notice.
Yeah,
Well,
that's, I think it probably would be
that's a
till the
little-
restrictions are lifted, yeah. Okay, everybody, is everybody clear? Chief, you want to muddy the
I'm not exactly clear
water?
because I want the council's direction, if you approve that, your expectation of us is to take an enforcement action on any of those that violate the governor's order.
Chief, let me say that neither one of these, I don't think, will produce any kind of thing where it'll need extra police protection, knowing what two we're talking about
That's
now.
not what I'm referring to, but I think you said that there was going to be probably well over 50.
I have the expectation of that.
And so then the expectation would be for us to take an enforcement action?
Pastor, would some of them mind moving, 50 of them move over to the clock tower and 50 more move over to the courthouse? So, I mean, they're all
I
within
didn't realize
earshot.
that his request was one of the ones that we were seeking to.
It's not
Well,
approved.
his request
Oh,
still,
it's not then, oh.
His is
No.
not approved.
his request, that request,
Sorry.
if it was approved, still doesn't fall, it still falls under the 50 people.
Hold on a second. For some clarity here, what Chief Harrell's asking is, in this motion, is he allowed to arrest the 51st person? I want to say,
Allow is not what I'm saying.
But you're asking for an enforcement solution.
Is that what you're ordering us?
And I want to say very clearly and very bluntly, I am 100% against enforcement action if there's a 51st person up there or if there's a 501st person up there. I am 100% against, if they're peaceful, us using police action against them.
And I don't disagree, but I think it's something that needs to be discussed.
It does.
It does.
Because I'm not in favor of starting to arrest somebody because there's 51 there.
If, Chief, you can you not always ask them to settle down on the crowd size? And if they don't comply or they give you any problems, then that opens another door towards a possible civil citation.
Sure, but I can't tell you the number of times I've asked people to comply with the law over my 26 years and they haven't.
And if I may, Mayor and Council, I'm going to side with Chief Harrell on this. You know, if you do, I know it muddies the water even more, but I do think there needs to be some clear direction on what's expected.
That's true.
So it doesn't put a department head in something that's, you know, someone's livelihood. I think there does need to be some clarification. I almost think that needs to be a separate item of business. Maybe that follows this next, but I don't think that needs to be made light of because it puts a department head in a very peculiar place.
We are good with whatever obviously you all choose moving forward, but I just want you to be aware of the position it puts us in.
Yeah, you need direction, Chief. Nobody's arguing. Yeah, you're exactly right. I wish that maybe the people wanting to use the gazebo would agree just to go to the free speech zone and do it there. I don't know that that's going to happen, though. All right. Do we have a motion on the floor?
Yes, we do.
I thought we did, yes. And I think we had a second, but then we had a question.
The motion, let me try to restate it,
Please.
is that we know that there's at least 2 that have been reservations, and possibly.
He's not being reserved.
Right.
Okay, and I thought that was the one we were talking about.
No.
Okay, all right,
There's been 2, and so the only way I can see us going with this is either allow those 2 and put the word out that it has to be all of the restrictions, and hopefully that those 2 won't, and allow no more. Jack says give the ones priority if we can do that, but once the dust settles, there'll be plenty of openings, I'm sure. Or just, short of that, it'd have to be a total moratorium, because Chief is just adamant that he's not gonna be able to enforce it, and we don't have any clue but what it would turn into. So I'm gonna go ahead, just for the sake of discussion, renew my motion that we allow the 2 reservations, but no more until further notice, and require that those 2 with the meetings, they comply with all Raleigh's restrictions.
Okay, is that all right? All right, the motion is second.
Yeah.
All in favor?
What discussion? Are we suggesting that the police enforce the North Carolina restrictions at these 2 approved gatherings?
I'm suggesting that they use their discretion, to what level the chief would believe would be the right discretion to use.
Yeah.
And again, I think your manager's suggestion is a good one. If you need more discussion about that issue, deal with it separately.
Yes, ma'am.
I guess I'm really getting confused. I'm sorry. When you said the 2, I named one.
That was
That's
one in
one of them.
Constitution Week.
The
That's one of them.
Constitution.
And the other's that
But
Constitution.
then when Jack, when you said the ones that had been
I
already
understood there were 2
approved.
or 3 that had already been approved and paid or set up before tonight.
I
They've
guess
already
what
been
I'm
approved.
saying is, we should let you have the discretion beyond the 2 if you go and see that
There's been more.
that there's
because
been
people
more that
reserve
you've
that
not
years
looked
in
at the book.
advance. And I
Right.
can't tell you off the top, yes.
I know, and that's why when we had discussed this earlier, you hadn't looked at what had been approved.
Exactly.
So my thing is, if there's
Any
more than
prior
2,
approval.
that's what I'm getting
Prior,
at.
and I know of only 2. Chief,
Okay,
you don't
and
know
it
of
may
any
be.
others, do you? Just those 2?
That's
All
my
right.
understanding.
And that's pretty much our understanding,
So-
is that I cannot think of any others because I usually hear about them. Okay, the motion's on the floor, it's been seconded, it's time for the vote. All in favor of Joe's motion? Any opposition? Okay, we have 1. So it's a 5-1. You get that, Mr. Travis? Okay. All right, let's move right on here. So
Am I permitted to question, or is that out of order at this moment?
I think it's been done. What is it you need?
The only
Mr.
question I have is with my event, application not being approved, can I interpret this board's decision that is something that is not approved and is not going to be approved? Is that how I need to
I would say
interpret
that's
that?
accurate, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I believe some more discussion may be needed for the interpretation of your action you just took in terms of law enforcement for the events that are going to happen.
Yes.
Run that by me again.
You just took the action of saying events that had previously been approved
Right.
are
allowed.
going to be allowed
Are allowed.
under the restrictions of the current executive order of the governor. I think your police department needs to know what your expectation is about enforcement of the executive order.
Can we not leave that to the discretion of the officers?
I think he's asking you not to just leave it
Yeah.
to his discretion.
And I'm gonna side with the department head on that. That puts him and his officers, now if it's in a pretty awkward position, because if they act and someone on this board disagrees, if we could just, I think this is a separate issue for those that have been approved. How does council expect law enforcement? Do you want it on a case-by-case basis? How do you expect me to be able to direct your police chief to enforce that?
I would like to see them be peace monitors, and if a attendant at one of these things, or any attendant downtown, violates a law, then they have violated that law. I would rather them just oversee the peace at an event that has more than 51 people or that violates a governor's order.
If you have an event and part of the people are in the free speech area and some are at the gazebo, is that technically keeping them, or is it one event?
So what the executive orders talk about is, what's the word they use? Not convocation. Anyway, get events that gather more than X number of people together, and that number varies whether you're inside or outside. I think the executive order might be violated by having more than 50 people together at one event. But if they're on different sides of the street, you don't control any of the free speech zone that's the county's property. And I don't know how you would, even if your decision was that your police are supposed to go in and crack heads and take, if we got more than 51 people there, 51 or more people there to start issuing citations or something. I don't know how you do it on county control property anyway.
I think with that recovery event, because they have a limited amount of people, since this lady was communicating with me, that I can keep them across the street and separate to where there wouldn't be any kind of incident to where it would violate it.
I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know of any dimensions on the area that you have to keep people, 50 people within. I don't know whether it's a quarter of an acre or 50 acres or Grand Central Station or whatever. We don't have any dimensions on where 50 people can stand.
Because of social distancing.
So, yeah, I think what you have to do is like Joe says, you have to use some common sense and some discretion on whether you think this is creating a public health hazard and creating a problem for the citizens in the county. Then the law enforcement, they have no question except to move in. They are sworn to uphold the laws of the state of North Carolina and the Constitution and so forth, and so they have to do that, but they have to use some common sense and discretion when it comes to trying to enforce something that doesn't have a finite size in order to do that with.
Might I add that I think the directives coming from Raleigh are vague intentionally so that our law enforcement officers are not burdened arresting people for frivolous reasons. There's enough crime in the world that we don't need to be arresting the 51st person. They're vague on purpose because they're not supposed to be enforceable. They're guidelines so that people with common sense do this thing.
Right.
It's not meant to be people are arrested because they're the 51st person. It's meant for common sense folks to follow them. It's not to burden our law enforcement with frivolous action.
Yeah, not wanting to beat a dead horse, but we've limited it to 2 or 3 right now. And we have every expectation that at least those 2 are not going to be hard to deal with.
Yeah.
I would want to have, possibly some police presence there. If they were hard to deal with, you'd go to the organizers and you'd say, we're going to have to pull the plug, pull the juice, the power. You won't have any right. And do things like that rather than try to arrest somebody.
Well, we can shut it down.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree with Joe. I think we can beat this on and on and on, but let's move on, or either take a 5-minute break.
Call for the question.
Let's ask Chief, is that sufficient? Have we done sufficient justice to where
I think as long as this council is in agreement that we use our discretion and that there will not be any blowback by those decisions made, we're good.
Yeah, that's it, right there. An officer has discretion, and I trust every one of our police officers to use maturity, sensitivity, and if it goes beyond where they have to do something, they know what to do, and they'll do it.
Yeah, we don't want to foment anything
No.
either. I mean, that people can get very angry in these, situations. So
I
think discretion is the better part of valor here.
Absolutely, yes. And I trust our officers.
I don't think we're talking the Billy Stick side of discretion. I think we're talking the other side of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
We don't carry slapsticks anymore. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Is that enough on that? We didn't have any motion to vote.
Yeah, we had a motion in a second. I call for the question, Mr. Mayor. Did we
I
have a vote yet?
thought we voted. We had one and.
Do we have 5 to 1?
Yeah, 5 to 1.
Okay.
Wake up over there, Jack.
I lost track of this conversation.
You lost track.
Should we take a break or no?
Well, I offered to. 5-minute break.
Let's
You
take
want
a
one? Let's
5
do it. All right, now I'm going to hold you to it. 5 minutes, too. I've got the timer is running right now. All right, you've already wasted 3 seconds.
Good motions, Joe. All 6 of them.
Yeah. In one time.
Did they have this much trouble in 1776?
I'm gonna tell you what Sam Ringler told me. When he stole Derek,
How are you?
he stole Derek Rowan away from the county. He said,
Okay, they're taking a 5-minute break. I'm going to kill the audio until they return.
well, it's not
bathroom open.
They're good.
I've got some of those.
Okay.
Okay.
That's why they have a big outbreak. There's a big outbreak of COVID in the bakery at Walmart.
Really?
I'm just, yeah.
I've already ate it, so. Yeah, there you go.
Culpepper, you got one more chance.
I've already had my hand slapped twice. I'm just not afraid to talk anymore. Three times.
That's what we were laughing at.
These new ones are more.
Yeah, that's what me and Donna were laughing.
I told him, yeah, I told him, you can do it.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm usually pretty good, but sometimes I'll mess up. I feel like I'm beating my head against the wall, but somebody has to be the kid doing his own thing, right?
You started out like that about being young, and then when it starts, I will just tell you.
I may just start this just out of spite from now on.
A rebel without a
All right, let's move. All right, let's go back. Acceptance of Franklin Fire Department grants and proposed budget amendment. Madam Manager.
Move we accept.
Hold on a second. There's a street closing request. Is that automatically been denied?
Yeah, I think we took care of that.
All right.
Oh, was that not one of the ones
That's-
too? that
that's-
was-
It was pre-approved.
Well, it got approved, but the street closing, obviously the street can't be approved, right?
So, Mr. Szymanski,
He's not here.
he's not here, so, the street closing, of course, has to come before town council. I had authorized the approval of the gazebo, that's why I think it's two separate issues. But the street closing, he did ask for a street closing, I believe it's Thursday, September the 17th. He wants to close Iola Street and the portion there between Crabtree General Store and the gazebo from 5 to 8 p.m. However, given that there's only gonna be the 50-person requirement, I don't know that I'm not speaking on behalf of Mr. Szymanski, but if there's not, I don't know that you would need a street closure if we're gonna follow the governor's restrictions to 50 people.
Yeah, and another thing, I think Joe brought this up one night, and I think it's something we need to look at. Closing that street at 5 o'clock is bad. It really is. It hurts our businesses, people going home. So let's look at that next month about if we want to decide on whether to close Iola Street on some of these
I'd like
things
to
at
go ahead and
5.
address it and give the manager discretion to close
Yeah.
from 6 to 8 if she believes talking with Szymanski.
Exactly,
that it-
yeah.
that would be-
Let's do it that way. Any objection to that?
No.
Okay.
That's good.
So that's my motion.
Have to be a motion.
It was a miracle. It passed without a vote. Acceptance. Okay, Chief, are you ready? Or, Madam Manager, are you ready on the budget amendment here on the fire department?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council. So what you have before you tonight is we're just looking for acceptance of the two grants, and they're large grants. They're in the agenda packet. One grant is a little over $36,000, and the other one is $37,171. And the second grant is right at 300 and I believe it's 70,000. I have that right there with me. And what we're looking for is just approval and acceptance of those two grants. There is a match on the one that would need funding from council. The $370,000 one, it did require, if we were granted the grant, there was a grant writer that helped secure that. Their fee is $6,000, so we're requesting, there's a budget amendment attached to that. $6,000 for $370,000, that's not a bad deal. We would request to move that from the fire department's fund balance to pay that fee. But this is just acceptance of both grants because I believe they are time sensitive, saying that the town accepts those. The larger grant would be for a 5-year period, and there's some outlines in the packet of what the grant could be used for. I do believe anything substantial that we would use the grant for, we would bring that to council. I don't foresee you adding positions or heavy equipment, something substantial like that without council approval. But I would like to thank Fire Chief Matt Breedlove and Assistant Chief Ryan Hersey and Captain Justin Setzer. I think they've all worked really hard on trying to secure some grants for that department, and their work is to be commended.
Okay. All right. Jack, you want to make a motion?
Make a motion, we approve the budget amendments.
Second.
All in Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. All right. Let's move on to update and a budget amendment for the CARES Act. This is pretty important. Madam Manager?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Board. So last month, we briefed the board on the funding that the town stands to possibly gain from the CARES Act funding through Macon County. And our allotted portion would be $191,169. And briefly, in your Excel spreadsheets that we've prepared, you can see where we have to submit monthly expenditure requests, or that we've shown what we've paid out to the county, and the county reimburses us based on those expenditures we've already paid. So right now you can see we've submitted $67,910.22, requesting that back from the county, which leaves an available credit for us to try and secure of $123,258.78. We've been having some pretty extensive meetings with all of our departments and meeting with our department heads to see what can be best used for the COVID-19 and CARES Act funding to help us comply with some of the COVID mandates. You'll see a breakdown in that. I'm not going to bore anyone with that, but you'll see a breakdown in your packet of proposed expenditures, where it would, with that proposal, would consume the balance that is available to us. The one stipulation that we're running into is in fire department, you're able, what we have budgeted, to pay for those expenses, okay? And we can be reimbursed. For water and sewer, we've had enough money budgeted to where we can buy those expenditures and be reimbursed. Where we've been hurt is our general fund, and particularly in the police department. So there's a budget amendment tied to this. The first one is capital outlay equipment. That's 2 message boards. They're $20,000 each. And those are the large message boards you see throughout town that encourages social distancing, hand washing. We're requesting to purchase those. And then also there's $30,810 in that as well. And that is for most of your PPE equipment for the police department that they're going to be needing. Because we can only ask for reimbursement on what we've spent out. So that's why we're requesting, it would be a budget amendment to take from general fund balance $70,810, with the understanding that the county will be reimbursing us from the CARES Act funding.
Any questions from anyone? If not, you want to go ahead and somebody give us a motion to go ahead and apply for the CARES Act funding?
I move that we apply.
Okay. Second? And I have a second. Any further discussion?
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
Summer, and I'm not overtime. Is this a separate issue from our overtime expenditures, or is this part of that?
That's part of it.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
You mentioned 2 signages. Are we limited to what type of signage, or are we just limited? I know we're limited to some extent, but would it be an opportunity to get something more vivid, vibrant, more expensive, one of something rather than 2, which might eventually be able to be used for advertising and other purposes? I mean, could we still explore exactly what we want to buy for free?
That's an excellent question. I mean, because for future use of the signage, I will ask if the board has a moment. I know Chief Harrell and I believe Mr. Moore have done some research on what the cost is. Can you brief the board on kind of what they're looking at with what they're getting? So maybe they want to look at adding more to that with Councilmember Collins' suggestion.
Sure. So what we had looked at, those are the large CM changeable message signs you see. I believe the county has several of them. They're the blue signs. So these are the large signs that could potentially be used, full matrix boards. So the nicer style, you can do graphics on them than the cheaper 3-line styles that are available as well. So these are the nicer units that can be outfitted with lots of other features down the road.
Not as nice as the one out at the Performing Arts Center, though.
So not color. They would be black and white.
Would color ones be allowed to be purchased with CARES Act money?
Sure, we can look at that, and there are options for those as well.
Do we have much time? How many days or weeks?
We could, on that particular item, we could bring that back to your October meeting because that's, I mean, that's an excellent opportunity to explore. We just have to have the money expended by or before December, so I think that warrants more, yeah.
Joe, you talking about something static or something that can be moved?
I don't know, but I know that I've always wanted some type of visual. And it would probably end up being static overall, but it may be that for nature of the COVID, it might be required that it be moved. But I just don't want to pass up the opportunity to get substantial funding for something that going down the road we could use a whole lot of.
I've got a question.
Yes,
Are
ma'am?
these, like when you come into the county now, the signs that say wear, face covering, is that the kind of what we're talking about?
Yeah, same signs they have at each entrance to the county.
The county.
And you see on the US 441 project.
Yeah, that's what you're,
Yes.
Road closed, special event.
yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
those could be used like,
They could.
for any events or anything.
Yes, they
In
could. It'd be
years.
better, be much better than nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
But I would like to have the opportunity to
That's
explore
good.
what,
Yeah.
for the same free money, what we.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion.
Okay.
So if we could actually just ask to approve as presented, with the exception if we want to hold off on the 40,000, and we'll bring that back next month as a budget amendment.
Okay,
Yes,
I'll
sir.
amend my motion.
Question, do you have to have it spent or just obligated about the 31st?
Spent.
So you gotta have it spent. Are you gonna have enough time to get it ordered and get it paid for before the 31st of December?
Yeah, we could have the research done next week, pricing, and have something ready for this next council meeting if you so choose.
Mr. Moore, could you get us some brochures and we can print them off and send them out to the board? Decide that way which one you want to go and make comments, and let's move on. 'Cause I do believe we need to get that money spent. I think Jack's exactly right.
I think if we're worried about meeting the deadline and getting the money, we need to go ahead and move on it.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you're gonna put yourself behind the ball, because other people are gonna be doing the same thing,
Yep.
trying to spend that money before the time runs out, so there's gonna be a backlog.
I don't doubt that, but if we're talking about a substantial amount of money, and if we've got the time, I want to see what other visual things might be available that would have a much bigger use going down through the years moving forward. And if we've got the time to do that, it won't take too long.
This is an electronic sign, right?
Yeah.
They are really, really expensive. We just
We're
priced
not
one.
going to have that discussion tonight.
I won't say where, but we just priced one, and it was more expensive than this.
That's the ones that are portable, well, they're movable, and they have their own generator with them, and they're solar powered, I
Yeah,
believe.
they're solar powered, and the same, they have a full color display as well. That's an option.
Okay.
Are we specifying what kind of sign, or are we just asking to approve the budget amendment to be able to spend the money?
No, we left that one off. I modified my motion, so
Okay.
we'll discuss that next.
To look at the color too.
Yeah.
All right. Joe, is that okay?
I believe it is.
Okay. All right. We've got a motion and a second. All in favor? Okay. Passes. Resolution for SRF funding application for Phase 2 of the water treatment plant. Madam Manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, what you have before you tonight, as many of you are aware, it seems like I say this statement a lot, we're working on Phase 2 of the water treatment plant. This is your first step to start to look at securing either some grant funding and or SRF loan funding. if we are, this is a resolution, it's not obligating the town to any specific number, it's just authorizing your manager to enter into those discussions with the LGC to see what's available. If any of that was awarded, that would also be brought back to council for council's approval and obligation of that debt or acceptance of grant funding. However, time's kind of been of the essence, because if we meet this deadline, if we can get this in by next week, the way the calendar is right now in water and sewer, we would not know if we were actually approved till February of 2021. So it would at least be advantageous to try and get in on this debt cycle to see what we're eligible for. Again, this is not committing the town. Any type of obligation of financing has to be approved by the board. This is just authorization to allow us to start those conversations.
Okay. You need a motion to accept.
So moved.
All right, I have a motion on the floor. I have a second. All in favor? Okay. All right, discussion on legal services with Smith Rogers. Madam Manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, what you have before you tonight is there's a contract that looks at allowing the town to enter into a professional legal service regarding police matters and anything HR related in the police department with Smith and Rogers. The attached quote is for a year, and if I'm understanding it correctly, it would be from a year. If we entered into it tonight, it would be a year until next year. So we could ask if they would prorate it and let us just work off of from now till the end of June. But with that, what you have is a budget amendment. You do have some funding available to be able to commit to those services. I know Mr. Henning and I have talked about it. He's familiar with the firm. I know it would certainly help in the way the climate is in today's society to have someone like that on staff. They are available 24 hours, 7 days a week. So if there was an unfortunate event or there needed to be some clarification, they are able for a phone call. Mr. Henning, do you want to talk?
Yeah, this firm is kind of famous among North Carolina municipalities, and frankly, I would have sworn to you that our police department was already using them. They are like at 24 hours, as the agreement says, they're a 24-hour on-call law firm that answers every kind of police procedural request, question that there is. So yeah, I can't recommend them highly enough, and they absolutely should enter into the agreement.
Question?
Yes, sir.
Do we expect this to become an annual line item in the budget?
Of course.
Yes, it would have to. But now here's also the caveat to that. This gives you a year to try out their services, and if the council and our police chief were not satisfied with their service, it's not that they're automatically built in. It would just flow on an annual basis based on your budget.
And particularly in today's climate, with everything that's going on in terms of the challenges that our law enforcement officers are given, to have on-call 24/7, experts in this for years and years in the state of North Carolina, I think the trouble they would keep you out of, you may never really fully know, but it would, $7,500, $7,600 pales in comparison to what it would cost you long term.
And I can tell you, I know one of these guys, Greg Rogers. He taught for years at the North Carolina Justice Academy. They're public law, PLI, Public Law Institute, and he's got a reputation second to none when it comes to police law.
Mr. Mayor, I believe the town of Highlands and the sheriff's office are currently contracting with the same firm.
I think you're right. Yes, sir.
I've yet to call them, and I do call them quite often. I've yet to call them, but I don't hear back from somebody within 15 minutes.
Yeah, they are good.
And at 2 in the morning, it could be the difference in a lawsuit and something, a young officer, which I have full confidence in officers, but even lawyers sometimes have to consult the law to know which way to proceed. And it's an invaluable resource. I can speak to it from personal experience.
Okay, I think everybody knows now that this is a very reputable firm. I'll entertain the motion that we proceed. Yes,
Make a
Jack?
motion, we approve it.
Okay, is that second? All right, any further discussion? Yes, sir.
Doesn't this need to be on a prorated till the end of June?
I'd like to have it prorated to go through coincide with our current fiscal year.
Okay. All right. That's not an amendment, you just, what you would like to add?
That clarification is that
Right.
they're asking for a year's contract, and so the year's contract would be prorated from October through June 30th, and then as our budget rolls around next spring, then if we renew the contract, it would then run from July 1st to June 30th.
I think they were agreeable to that, if I remember correctly. Were they not? Okay. All right, we've got the motion and a second, and all in favor? Okay. Whew. Discussion on school virtual learning hotspot. I think some of the board already knows about that, so, Madam Manager?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, and I've got to give accolades to Councilmember Collins.
Yes, sir.
He's the one who actually approached us with this idea. So we reached out to Dr. Baldwin at the schools because there is definitely a unique situation right now across the world with students and how they're able to get their daily education. So one of the suggestions that we had is a couple things. We could be listed on their virtual hotspot list, which would mean they could come to the front office here, or we could post something out front to where they could have access in our parking lot to our Wi-Fi. Or if they needed to actually ever use this as a virtual learning classroom, they could have access to our building here. This building in the area in which we're sitting in now, you have 2 restrooms that are easily available. Someone's here always 7:30 to 5, Monday through Friday. They have a kitchen space, but I'll let Mr. Collins speak on it anymore if he'd like, but I think he's presented a great opportunity to help the students and parents.
It's a perfect area that for this time, we should, if we can, make it available for the school system for whatever use that they could use of it.
Good suggestion. Yes, sir, Mr. Culpepper.
Are we opposed to the idea of having a couple picnic tables out here on the concrete patio for after-hours use?
Let's bring that up at another time.
I mean, a lot of kids are doing their homework when we're not here,
Well,
so I
we've
mean,
got-
they're going to be standing by the glass wall out here. You know,
I see
trying to
what
get
you're
on the Wi-Fi.
saying.
Yeah, I think that it's be the discretion of our manager
Yeah.
if this goes forward to make some adjustments that would be reasonable, yeah.
And we have one picnic table out back now that nobody ever really uses a whole lot except some of the employees, so. Yes,
Just
sir.
A point of information, Mr. Mayor, I've had looked into this same sort of program for Macon County Schools and lots of other clients. Because the one thing I want to make sure of is whether if you have students in this building, you may need to get into what's called a remote learning center agreement with the schools. The problem was that, and a lot would depend on whether or not you're actually providing any kind of supervision or people around the students and seeing what they're doing while they're here, or whether Macon County Schools is going to provide that, which is possible. Or you could open it up and let the parents do it for that matter. It may be that, the problem being that if any one of us has more than I think it's 3 or more unrelated children in the same place for more than 4 hours a day, you're running a daycare. What Department of Health and Human Services did to fix that in recognition of the fact that we need help with providing virtual learning spaces for children right now, is relax that if whatever entity that is gets into an agreement with the local Board of Education that they're going to provide the space for that purpose. So I don't know for sure. It would depend on how you structure their use inside the building, whether or not you'd actually need that. But that's something I can help both clients sort of work through. But I think it's a great idea, and I know that they appreciate the offer.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Does IT have any concerns, any security concerns, or anything as far as people accessing over? Is that something we've considered that we need to address?
That's a great question. I'll let Justin discuss it, because we do have, they wouldn't be able to connect to our direct network. We've got a public Wi-Fi that they could use, correct?
Yeah, we have a guest
A
we
guest.
use down here that's separate. It's, the IP is separated in our public, like domains that we all use in our offices. We might need to beef it up a little bit, maybe add an extra router or something to get enough strength, you know, if somebody's in the parking lot or something. If we need to, we can double check and make sure we're isolated and everything, so nobody, you know, having any. If it did, we've got a robust firewall catching anything.
Okay, does that answer all the questions? Yes, sir.
So in compliance with all rules and regulations, which may be coming our way for endeavors such as this kind in this unique situation, I make a motion that the town offer to the Board of Education the use of its facility to the extent possible.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Passes. Okay. Sick leave policy, we added that to item L.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, what you have before you tonight, and I'll apologize for the lateness of it and why it wasn't on the agenda. We actually have been trying to funnel this through our ordinance review committee meeting, and today was actually the first day we were able to have ordinance review since COVID. So we wanted to see if we could get this vetted first through that protocol before we brought it to council. So again, apologies to why it wasn't on the agenda, but we wanted to run it through that committee. What you have before you tonight, and I know, John, if you want to speak on anything, or Mr. Talon as well, is it would be an amendment to the town's personnel policy, section 19, sick leave, leave sharing with other employees. So this is, the current language does not allow this. The new proposed language would allow this. And it would be transfer of sick leave from one employee to another is allowed only under specific circumstances when the receiving employee has depleted available sick, vacation, and comp leave. The town manager and HR director are responsible for the application of this policy. And I'll turn it over to John if you want to speak on it.
Yeah, so it is very common among local government entities to have a leave sharing policy. I have seen the beginnings of the regulations under which your administration is going to carry this out if you'll approve it as part of your personnel policy. And I think they're ready to fully implement it and have, I think it would be a useful benefit to your employees. I recommend you adopt it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yes, Jack.
I've seen this before, but normally the shared leave policy, unless it's changed from the county, was that you could transfer leave from one employer to the other, but it had to be accrued vacation leave and not sick leave, because sick leave does not accrue. If you leave your employee, you don't get paid for sick leave. But if you do leave and you have accrued vacation, that is a liability for the city or the county. So I guess we not have anything like it in our policy now as far as sharing accumulated vacation, annual leave.
We don't, and that's an excellent point that you brought up. That was actually something we're going to bring up tonight too with the board. We have nothing in there. Right now it's actually worded you cannot share, period. And this has been an ongoing occurrence for at least the past 6 months, where you have employees not asking for leave but wanting to share their leave. And right now we cannot permit that. But that is an excellent point. We're not asking that it necessarily needs to be sick for those very reasons. We would certainly welcome the idea of vacation, because that is a liability to the town if someone were to retire or quit, because you have to pay them their vacation.
Well, I'll give you an example. When I retired, I had 300 something hours of sick leave. And if I say, well, I'm retiring, I don't really need the sick leave, I'm going to give all of it to Travis over there. Doesn't cost me anything, and he gets a benefit from it, but it puts another liability onto the organization.
Well, now there's an exception to that, isn't there? Immediate family, for them, their employees can donate sick leave.
Immediate family would be family medical leave. You have a special section for that.
I'm pretty sure they can donate sick leave if they're immediate family and they both.
If it's an immediate family member, if you have two people in the same family working for the same organization, then you can transfer sick leave from one family member to another,
I'm gonna say
but
that.
not to someone outside the immediate family.
No. In other words, if it was a buddy of mine, I could only donate vacation time, but if it was my immediate family, whatever the definition of that would be, then I could donate sick leave.
Well, I think it's a good idea to be able to allow employees to donate accrued vacation time to other employees when they need it, and they've exhausted their sick leave or vacation time or comp time or whatever they have. I've got a little bit of reservation about allowing to transfer sick leave versus annual leave.
And we've looked at several different organizations across the state, and there's a variety of ways that you can go about this. And the county does it one way, and
Doesn't
other
the
towns
state,
do
the
it.
state's sick?
State does another way, yeah, state
I
uses
was
sick.
state and it was sick, was what I could give.
You could transfer sick leave?
It was just sick leave.
Was there any maximum or minimum amount?
I think they had restrictions. I know I've done it before.
And I think we would definitely have restrictions.
Well, yeah, there were restrictions, but when you were talking, I thought it was only sick leave that we could give.
Was there an expectation by the manager there'd be a vote on this tonight?
No, it's just an item for discussion because, again, I feel for our employees who have asked about this for 6 months and we've not been able to have an ordinance review. And we thought the proper channel would be first ordinance review to see if it's something that could even be obtainable. And that's why I wanted to bring it to council's attention tonight. Definitely, I mean, a vote would be nice, but I'm not advocating for one.
I just don't think we're anywhere near a vote because of all of the questions that have just been asked around here. It could be something that would be very much on the table as we look towards our next fiscal year, or at such time as we figure out some of the details. But I wouldn't know what I was voting on tonight if it was just a blanket transfer. Jack brought up some points and all. I'm thinking that, I mean, is there some circumstance in the field that's causing this to get pushed to the goal line quickly?
There's circumstances every day to where we have new hires who they may have a death in their family. I mean, it's something that pushes it every day. And I certainly understand your concern, but I mean, there's different ways to look at it. If it's the desire of the board, I would ask that if you want to give it at least a month, we can come back at your October meeting, but I would ask not longer than that.
I've been here 22 years, or out of 24, something like that, and we've never really, it's not become the focus, at least to now. And I'm so kind of curious as to if there's some, pressures that are out there that's causing it to all of a sudden want to bubble up to.
So part of our discussion in ordinance review was the fact that in your personnel policy, and I couldn't remember, and I don't think Mr. Mayor could either, whether there was ever really discussion about it. You had at some point in time a town policy about shared leave, and then with the adoption of the personnel policy in 2010, I think it was, there's this blanket statement in there, no sharing of leave. And so even if it's a work in progress, I think at least if tonight you would signal your intent to repeal this and have administration flesh out what the policy is going to be or how it's going to be put into practice for you by your October meeting.
And that's all we're asking.
I don't have any problem with sharing leave, but I'd like to take a closer look at whether you're going to share all leave or
And I agree with that.
just annual leave or vacation or sick leave or a combination or one or the other. I'd like to get that clear before. But I think shared leave is a good policy because we have had a lot of employees where I worked before who were in dire straits and they didn't have anything left, and their family was going through a medical crisis, and we had a lot of compassionate employees who wanted to help, and they could do this by giving them something of value to help them through a difficult time. So I'd like for them to I'd like for you to look at that and let us adopt something better than what we've got now.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're not taking a motion on that, we're just holding off on
And
a
we'll
while.
bring that at your October
Okay.
meeting, so thank you.
All right, I've got one other thing I'll at the very, very end. Let me run around the table real quick. I don't have any announcements. Anybody got anything they want to bring up? That we haven't, okay.
What's this?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I think
It's right there. Thank you. Our model is displaying it.
Yeah, I had it on a second ago, but it's too tight.
I'll second that question.
It makes it tight. It goes like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's the new fashion statement.
All right.
Obviously, you people don't get out very often.
It's blowing up on TikTok, man. You ought to see what people are
You
doing.
gotta make sure you turn it the wrong way so you can read Franklin on the back of it.
Would y'all like to go on and conduct some business? Okay, Mike, you raised your hand.
Sarah's one of
At ease, at ease. At ease.
I talked to Summer about this earlier today, and I wanted to get the board's temperature on it. And I'm not this tonight, and that's why I didn't even try to make it an agenda item. But I was thinking, given this COVID situation and the fact that we're not able to do Pumpkin Fest, and I understand that they're trying to work on something to supplant that in some form or fashion, but what would the boards get your temperature on having some sort of like a contest where town residents could like go online and register for this contest, and it'd be like a competition for yard decoration like you could do for Halloween or for autumn? You could have 2 categories, you could have 3 categories, I don't know how many categories you have, and some sort of prize. I don't know whether it's a cash prize or a big old trophy, but something that encourages people, kind of help with the morale of the town, you know, something that just encourage people to make the town, you know, their own little piece of the town that they own, or you know, I just thought it'd be something neat. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on that or not. I mean, we've encouraged people to put out quilts for airing the quilts and these other things, and I just thought it might be a nice thing that we could.
I have a thing on it. What, could you get with Gwen Taylor at the Streets of Franklin and pursue that and ramrod it?
Try my best.
Good. No, I'm dead serious, yeah.
And Mayor and Council, if I may, I know Mike is going to try and attend, I believe maybe Miss Mashburn. We're actually going to be having a meeting with Miss Taylor later this week.
It's a great idea. Thank you. Let's move with it.
Don't ignore, it might be Christmas, because that's whenever I miss the decorations myself. And if right now we're at September 7th or 8th, by the time we got off the ground, you know, Halloween or pumpkin may be past us.
All right, Joe, you're in charge of Christmas. Okay.
Well, I've actually told Summer.
Too late, Joe's already got it.
No, I'm not taking Christmas. I told Summer, I said, you know, the biggest thing about Halloween is wearing a mask. And I said, can you not do something called like a masquerade to where you're designing masks or you're doing something? I mean, it seems to me that with all the mask wearing, there ought to be something you can do for Halloween involving the mask.
Yeah, we have time to do that, baby.
You know, I mean, it just seems like, so I'm kind of with.
Well, Mike needs help.
Yeah.
Okay.
Put a mask on his sign.
No, that's a great idea. Let's move with it, sure enough. I think we need to do whatever we can, and you've got a schedule out right now for starting the fall decorations.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The September 21st and 22nd.
Great.
Pending rain, though, of course.
And we can use bodies.
Yes, always.
Okay. Ms. McCray?
I can't equal what they did.
Okay. Ms.
I'm good.
Mashburn? Mr. Culpepper?
I didn't have anything, but I just thought of something.
Okay, thank you.
To piggyback on Mike's Halloween idea, what some people are doing because their kids can't go trick-or-treating is they're doing like some small neighborhood scavenger hunts and things like that, doing like a scary scene and like a checklist where you go around and like you see all the scary stuff or flying witch, whatever it is. And it may be worth mentioning to Gwen Taylor on the Streets of Franklin, if you can get one business doing a scary scene or a mural over here and then one over here, and print out a checklist for the kids, and obviously shall not have everybody show up on Halloween night and do it. But, you know, throughout the week or weeks surrounding Halloween, hand out these flyers on Main Street, let kids go around with their masks on and find these things, and somehow there's candy involved.
Thank you. Good. Sir, I didn't recognize you. Thank you for being here. Do you have anything to add?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Talent? Mr.
good.
Collins?
No.
Okay, that being said, Chief, I think you wanted to have a word real quick, like?
I do. While we're all together, I asked just to say a few words, if you don't mind. I know we've been here a while tonight, and I'll try to make it quick. But I wanted to publicly make a few comments, more or less to the town council, Mr. Mayor, and Madam Manager, and all that have given me support. As y'all know, I've resigned as fire chief in the last week or so, and it's my intentions to return to law enforcement. That being said, I wanted to say thank you for the support you give me individually. Thank you for the support you give my department and the things that we've accomplished together as a team. It's been a great time for me in my career, my life, and I'm blessed to work for the town of Franklin. I want it to be known I'm not leaving because of anything involving the town of Franklin, because of any bad thing, any bad relationship. I think we've got a lot to be proud of. We've certainly made some great strides in the last couple of years. We're in the final stages of getting a substation for the fire department. We're in the final stages of, purchasing a truck and getting our ISO rating together, and we've come milestones, and that's a lot to be said because of the work that we've done together. I want to continue that. So I want to say, if you need anything from me after my departure, please don't feel hesitate to call me. It's my desire to keep in the fire service and to do that in an honorable way, and to continue to work with the town of Franklin and work for the citizens of the town of Franklin. But honestly, I just wanted to say thank you. And town manager, you stood behind me. Thank you.
Yes, Jack.
I would just like to say thank you for your service to the town of Franklin and for your leadership in your department. And also thank you for staying with us until we find a replacement.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
And I'll add, we're proud of you, proud for you, and you'll always have our best wishes. Absolutely. Anyone else?
Well, just thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I may still be your fire chief come next meeting, but I just wanted to say that for the time being, just in case you find a replacement. I just wanted publicly say thank you. It's been great.
Thank you.
Just remember, you can run, but you can't hide.
We're sandbagging the search, so you got to stay.
Okay, I would love to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Not from you.
This will be the only thing I do that produces a positive result tonight.
You know I won't argue that. Yeah. Is that second? All in favor? All right, y'all have a good month till we gather again.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarah. I feel like I'm ready.
I lost the record, Bobby.
Yep. Thank you all for watching. I'll try to cut this video up in the next coming days.
Did Chris